that, how you're holding people to
Yeah,
account.
of course.
And then I'll in the beginning we'll have one question. What does meaningful youth participation mean to you? How do you define it? And then I will have.
Okay.
I'll start with Saba.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
we're about to boot it up and go live
Sure.
here. For your to start, you're going to take that from him because we're going to have a little graphic overlaying it. So
Okay.
you'll take that and then
And I'll speak to this camera.
You're going
is
to
it?
speak to this camera when
Yeah.
you introduce and when you're saying goodbye.
Yeah.
I will be right there. Okay, so I will give you your 5 minute. So you'll see me stand up. I'll make it, hey, we've got 5 minutes. So you guys all know, you will know. I'll get your attention somehow.
Yeah.
And then also I'll give you this when we need to start wrapping up. Okay?
Awesome.
And you'll be talking to them.
And
Okay?
overall, yeah.
Yep.
Start with this camera.
Yep.
Yeah.
Start and end with this camera. Yep.
Okay.
So are we looking at this camera?
You're looking at me.
Me too.
Yeah. You're all looking at me when you're speaking. Hi everyone, my name is Marie Hauerslev and I am here to moderate the session on the first Every Woman, Every Child Facebook Live session during the United Nations General Assembly of 2017. So today we're going to talk about meaningful youth participation and I've got 3 excellent experts with me here today. So we'll have a conversation style kind of session to discuss what they've experienced and how they define and see meaningful youth participation become a reality. It's a crucial topic to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and also one that's very difficult, but we do all realize that we need to push for youth participation. We are the future generation, but we're also current leaders. But before I start, I'd just like my excellent panelists to introduce themselves, so maybe you can start. Saba, just say a few words about yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Saba Ismail and I'm the co-founder of a young women-led organization called Aware Girls. I'm a sexual and reproductive health rights advocate and expert, and also the founder of a hotline that is called Saheli, which is the first ever hotline in Asia that provides information on safe medical abortion, contraceptives, and sexual and reproductive health and information to young women and girls.
Awesome, thank you. And now on to Kamal.
Thank you. I'm Kamal Gautam from Nepal. I'm 25 years old and I'm currently working with Right Here, Right Now Nepal, which advocates for young people's sexual and reproductive health rights, and as well as we focus on meaningful youth participations. Basically, we work in 3 thematic areas. One is safe abortion of young people, another is SOGB rights, and another one, and the last one is the comprehensive sexuality education for young people. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
My name is Taria Adams. I'm from Nigeria. I work for White Ribbon Alliance Nigeria. And we're currently campaigning for citizen-led accountability for maternal, newborn, and childhood. Basically, we're advocating to government to say that citizens have a right in how health solutions are provided, and citizens are critical to the solutions in the sense that citizens can provide the solutions to their own problems, because the problems in the health sector they have context-based. The people themselves out there, they understand the context, they understand the culture, and they can contribute meaningfully to direct the investment of government to reflect the needs and desires of the people themselves.
Awesome. And just to briefly introduce myself, I'm the Vice President for External Affairs of the International Federation of Medical Students Association, and this is an organization where we represent 1.3 million medical students worldwide. But I think we already see how powerful agents of change young people can be. And to discuss it a little bit more, I'd like to ask you, what does the phrase meaningful engagement mean to you? And how would you define it? So I'll take you first. Saba, if you have some input.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before going into what meaningful participation means to me, I'll just talk about very briefly about the challenges that actually hinders meaningful youth participation, especially towards young women and girls. I come from the northeast of Pakistan, which is an area which is hit by violent religious extremism. And militants have attacked women advocates, women health rights activists, also polio workers, and also schools, especially girls' schools, but they have also impeded women's access to health and healthcare facilities. In addition to the violent extremism, the patriarchal cultural norms and values also impede women from claiming their basic human rights. Sexual rights and reproductive health is also a taboo subject which restricts women's and especially young women from having any access to education, to information, and it also makes them even more vulnerable, and it also results into unintended pregnancies, into unsafe abortions, into sexually transmitted diseases, and also to other harmful traditional practices such as early child and forced marriages. So, and what happens as the result is that the SRHR of young women remain unaddressed at the policy level, but also at the implementation level. So, what should be done to address all these issues? Well, it's really important that young women and girls are engaged in the design, in implementation, in monitoring and evaluation of all the processes at every stage, because young women and girls know their challenges that they face themselves. They are the experts of their lives, and they understand it. So meaningful youth participation actually allows young people to shape the SRHR services because they know what they need. They also, because young women also know that what type of SRHR education they need, what are their questions, what are their lives, and also it helps to better formulate the laws and policies. So gender equality, the empowerment of women and girls, and the full realization of human rights, including the SRHR, to make free choices about their own sexual and reproductive lives. It's about access to family planning, to safe and legal abortion, are actually key to achieving happier, healthier, and peaceful lives.
Yeah, so you mentioned that it is needed to make this change, it is needed that young women and girls are engaged. Do you have any concrete examples of this being done, and maybe can you share some of the challenges that you met in this as well?
Yeah, so actually in Pakistan, 21% of girls get married before the age of 18. So these girls who are not allowed to vote, they are not allowed to open a bank account or drive, but they are considered wise enough to be a children. And that's why what Aware Girls is doing, the organization that I co-founded when I was 15 years old with my sister Gulali, that we are working to empower women and girls, and we are working to eliminate child marriage by establishing girl power clubs. So we have established more than 50 girl power clubs in educational institutes, but also in the communities. And through these girl power clubs, we are educating communities, we are doing advocacy for the issues of SRHR. We are making sure we have developed charter of demand with the consultation of these young women and girls. Similarly, maternal mortality is also a very big issue in Pakistan. Nearly every hour, one woman dies because of maternal mortality. Similarly, 90% of women deliver at home, and 80% of deaths happen in home deliveries. And many deaths of maternal mortality happen because of postpartum hemorrhage as well. But the irony and the tragedy is that these deaths can be prevented by availability of information about a medicine, which is among the essential medicines list of World Health Organization since 2005. Yeah. And that's what the Heartline that I co-founded is doing, giving this information right to the women and girls, and they are the ones who are taking decisions for themselves whether to use this information or not. But the information is already available, and we are empowering them through this hotline. So what I actually just want to say that upholding and defending women's rights is very important for ensuring the life of dignity for all, and we, the young women and girls, have a right to decide on the issues that concern us directly, and they're all actually also promised to us right here during one of those general assemblies. So the human rights and all these, the sustainable development agenda, this whole agenda, it can only be achieved through the meaningful engagement of women and girls, and it has to be ensured that gender equality is one of the main pillars of the sustainable development agenda. And I just must tell you that it is possible just by making sure that women and girls are equal right holders of a society, and they can contribute fully to their society as well.
Awesome, thank you. And I think yourself is a great example of a young person who's been meaningfully engaged in your community and actually made a change. So thank you so much for sharing that. And now on to Kamal. I have a question for you, which is, what do you think is needed to drive more meaningful and inclusive youth engagement at all levels of society. So that means local, national, and global as
Okay,
well.
Sawa has covered a lot of information on meaningful youth participation, and she has covered many things about girls and young women. And when you talk about young people's meaningful and inclusive youth participation, it is very much important to remember that the young people are an extremely diverse group. Their experiences, their challenges, and the opportunity can vary, and greatly that vary based on their real or perceived gender, age, nationality, ethnicity, economic status, health status, sexual orientation, gender identity, geographical, and there are lots of diversified group. So to drive more meaningful and inclusive youth engagement of at all levels, not only at local, not only at national, but all levels, we need to consider many things. Number one is that we need to involve young people from the very beginning. As we young people know that we know that our own issue and we are expert on our own issues. And another one is having a clear purpose and thorough implementation plan. We need to be involved in from the very first planning stage to the implementation. So it is while implementing, it is very much difficult to very much difficult and uncomfortable working with young other adult people, and adult people also ignore us. But
Why is it so hard?
because they think that we are overthrowing them, but in the meantime we want to collaborate. Young people want to collaborate. We want to lead youth adult partnership, so we can learn from them and we can do the work combinedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think they can also learn something from us?
Why not? Because the young people, this is 21st century and everything is changing, and the needs of the young people are changing. The programs that they need are changing, and so we need to learn from each other because they have some experience and we have some new ideas. We can use technologies. We are expert on our own issues. So youth adult partnership is very much important to ensure meaningful and inclusive youth participations. And another one is young people should have some meaningful roles. Only calling them in a consultation process and talking to them and not addressing their issues, not recognizing them, that is also not a very meaningful and inclusive youth participations. So number 4 is that we need to provide young people with the support they need. Young people need capacity building support, facilitation skill support, resources, not only the monetary, but we need different kinds of resources that other people can give us. Just adult organization, adult people, they can be the resource for us. So if we can ensure these all things, then we can we can say that we have a meaningful and inclusive youth participations. And another thing is that we always talk about meaningful and inclusive youth participations. There are lots of organizations who work for meaningful and inclusive youth participation, but there is one challenge: institutionalizing and practicing it. We never do that.
No.
That's one of the greatest challenges for meaningful and inclusive youth participations.
Have you experienced that great example of meaningful youth participation?
Yes, the great example is that I can say that this is the current example because I'm invited by the Restless Development as a young advocate, and which I am involved in which I am being involved from the very first beginning. And among 5 of the young advocates, I'm one, and the team consists of the 5 team consists extremely diverse group. They are from different continents. They are from different. They represent different gender. They represent different geographical locations and various experiences. So these all 5 people are here, and we are planning the things ourselves. We are implementing, and the Restless is providing us, the support, coordination support, and other things. And this is one of the, perfect example for meaningful and inclusive youth participations.
Yeah, I think that is really an awesome example of young people that make change at the local ground,
Yes.
but they are being brought to these high-level events
Exactly.
and with some of the most powerful decision makers of the world, and they're being presenting their ideas to these people. So that is awesome, and you're a great example of that as well. And now on to Tarja. The question for you is, in your opinion, how can governments better embrace citizens' voices to hold them to account? And what are the key challenges we currently face in creating a space for open dialogue and communication?
Thank you very much. I like to start by saying, first of all, government needs to understand that citizen engagement is for them, in the sense that it betters them. Because one of the challenges of leading an accountability movement is that government seem to think that you're on the other side. You're the one accusing them. You're pointing fingers at them. But really, at the center of citizen-led accountability is harvesting citizen voices to do direct investment that reflect the people. Now, if government is for the people, then government has to listen to the people to provide solutions that the people think is right. Citizen engagement provides legitimacy for government action. You can't say you're providing solutions for citizens if you're not listening to citizens, because your solutions could be your solutions. When you involve the citizens, it becomes our solution. And we have great examples of that. What are we doing in Nigeria, WR in Nigeria? We are creating platforms. You know, we talk about citizen engagement, but we also need to create platforms for that engagement to happen and institutionalize that to become a standard of practice in everyday running of government. And in Nigeria, to improve the health indicators, we are strengthening a platform called World Health Development Committees. These are committees in the communities who come together once every month to talk about their health challenges. Now, we moved it from them talking about health challenges to giving feedback to government, and government sending response to them. Also, we're creating town hall meetings, community dialogues, where we bring government officials straight with the citizens and they hear them. Now, a great example of that is we had a town hall meeting in Niger State, Nigeria, and the ED of State Primary Healthcare Development Agency was there. And some citizens told him of how their facilities were bad. And the next 24 hours, he deployed equipment to those facilities. Now, there was a lady, Halima, I met in the beginning of a campaign, who has had 3 kids. She's 25 and she's had 3 kids. And she said she had all her 3 kids at home because the facilities weren't functioning. Now, at the time of this town hall meeting, she was with her 4th baby. And for the first time in her life, she went to a facility to deliver because government had supplied equipment. Now, that's a perfect example that when citizens and government come together to dialogue, they both provide solutions, because government is trying to solve the problems of the citizens. The citizens are there to help you. So that's a perfect example. Now, I went to see Halima, and the most empowering thing about seeing Halima was the hug she gave me, and she said, I never thought in my lifetime this would happen. Now, she considers the basic rights of giving birth in a facility a privilege. That's something we need to look about, and that's what encourages us to do more, because we need, as young people, to understand the power within us, the power of voice and movement to lead and hold our government to account. We can't talk about global solutions without local problems, without local solutions. We can't talk about solving the global problems if we can't provide solutions to the local problems. And as young people, we can accelerate that. But a lot of young people talk about wanting to be engaged, but what are the platforms? How are we being engaged? Are we doing that on social media? Do we just want to protest? Protest and all, it provides spaces for discussions to happen, but it doesn't really provide the solutions.
So what's the solution?
The solution is that we have to constructively create the platforms for government to accept that they have to engage with us. What are those platforms? In different countries, different solutions. In our country, we are saying the World Health Development Committees, where community members themselves can meet with government and with themselves to talk about health problems and prefer solutions. It's a platform. So if you're a community member, you think you want your voice to be heard, you go to that platform rather than just sit in your house and complain. And so as young people, as much as we have to understand that our voice is important, we need to also understand that we have to create acceptable platforms, and we have to do it in a positive manner. First of all, communicate our messages in a manner that says we're here to help government. We're not here to fight government. We're not here to say government is not doing right. We know that government probably is not doing as much to our expectation, but hey, we're here to help. And that's what we need to send out, the message that we're just here to help. And it is not It is not a favor. It's a responsibility as young people to do that.
Yeah.
Now, Nigeria has a population of 180 million. Half of that population are youth under 30. So the future is here. You don't have a choice as a young person. The future is right here. And it is about time we stop waiting for people to create spaces for us. We need to create the spaces for ourselves to make our voices heard and hold our leaders to account. We can't solve any problem by sitting at home. We must say it is time, it is here, it is now, and we have the solutions. And we have great examples that the solutions are here. So we need to keep doing that.
Sure. But yeah, at the same time, I think it's also so important to applaud the work that you're doing and that you've all been doing, because it is such a challenge, and there are so many barriers that we have to break through. Many of us here around the table also being women, being young, there's a lot of prejudice in many cultures around young people, and older generations being more wiser and maybe are the more natural leaders, but actually we need young people to be the leaders as well, as you're saying, and you're all great examples of. So before we end, I'd like us to talk a bit about first steps and what you think and that are the top 2 to 3 priorities on improving how young people are meaningfully engaged in these conversations. And I think it's excellent that we all have kind of health backgrounds, and a lot of us have worked in SRHR, so maybe we can talk a bit more specifically about that. But do any of you have inputs about what are the most important priorities we have now?
Yeah, so I can talk about some very specific one. Number first, as you just talk about, the removal of the barriers to access contraceptives, but also the removal of the legal barriers to access safe and legal abortion, and also elimination of all forms of sexual and gender-based violence, including the harmful traditional practices that are early child and forced marriages. So this is the removal of barriers. Number 2 is to repeal the laws that violates basic human rights of young women and girls. And 2B is actually to have such kind of laws that and implement those laws and programs from the government side to prevent the harmful practices. Number 3rd step, I would say, is to actually accelerate funding, but also implementation of universal access to accessible, affordable, also to acceptable and quality sexual and reproductive health services, to comprehensive sexuality education, including, well, most importantly, youth-friendly services. And these investments, laws and policies should be on a right-based approach. They should be gender responsive, gender sensitive, and they should be non-discriminatory. The 4th I have is that governments also need to engage young women and girls meaningfully during the policy formulation, but also during the budgeting processes as well for all these, because usually what happens is that there are laws and policies that exist, but there is not enough allocation for such programs. The very last point, to be very quick, is that there are the SDGs indicators, but it's very important that that each country have the SDGs indicators that are inclusive for sexual and reproductive health and rights for young women and girls. And these SDGs indicators include the collection of data on all these bases, and to make sure that young women and girls are fully included and meaningfully involved in collection of these data for these indicators.
So, Saba, if your health minister invited you to a meeting about formulation of these issues, would you accept it?
Yeah, well, yes, I will resign right away, and I will give all the rights to all the young women and girls, not only in Pakistan, but I wish I have powers to give all over the world.
Awesome. And Kamal, do you have anything to say about this issue?
First, we young people needs to be hopeful and optimistic. You know, I was tired of being in the sidelines. You know, at first I was tired of being in the sidelines and watching people making my decisions. But now, you know, I'm pursuing youth adult partnership in my country through Right Here Right Now platform, and this is giving me hope. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to change. And another thing, the takeaway message or the next steps will be, don't just talk about meaningful and inclusive youth participations. Institutionalize it, practice it, and try to formulate in your organizational policy, national policy, and start practicing it. That's how we can achieve everything.
How do you think we can institutionalize this?
So we need to for an organization, if you those many of the organizations, they have thematic areas called meaningful and inclusive with participations, and but most of the times they fail to institutionalize because they bring young people to the platform, but they don't recognize them. They just call them in the process. They just make the part of that action. So the organization need to call young people and make them part of that action over the whole process, and try to institutionalize it through developing organizational policy like membership of young people, advisory board, working group committee. If we can do that, then it is going to be fine.
Right. Because we don't want these tokenistic
Yes.
solutions where
Exactly.
we're just put on stage and look young, but actually, in reality,
Yes.
no action is taken. So yeah, I think that's a very important point as well. And now, Taria, do you have any?
I think that first of all, young people need to understand the responsibility and the power that we all have to make change happen. That's where it begins from. We have to first of all want to make change happen. We have to dream of a better world, and then we will get it. We will make it happen. The acting president of our country signed up and said he supports our campaign. Now, that's empowering because that's an example of how a movement from a local level got to the top of our government. Now, what are the tools that we have within us as young people? What skills do we possess? And so young people need to understand that we can channel the skills, the education that we have, technology, and access to information to direct that to bring about change. It's about time we start to do things like that. Meaningful engagement, I keep saying it's about creating a platform, and we need to understand the power of numbers. So I could be the one voice screaming, I want change happen, but we all can come together. So if 1 million, 20 million people are together asking for one thing, we will make it happen. So creating that platform for young people to come together collectively to demand that we want change happen, it's a key way to making change happen. Young people need to understand the power of number, the power within us as people, the power within the skills that we have to make change happen. Like I said, Nigerian adolescent population is alarming. Over 30 million young adolescent girls. Now, if we don't do anything about those young adolescent girls, in the next 10, 4, 5 years, they'll become mothers.
Yeah.
They'll become the statistics and the figures that we talk about. What are we going to do to ensure that these people do not become the figures again?
Yeah.
It is all within us, technology. I think that's the way to go.
And I think that's a great point to end on. It is a great example of really seeing how we need people like you guys to push the world forward. And so realizing that more than 50% are under 25 years old of the world population really gives us a great legitimacy. It's a huge call to action. And we as young people want to be engaged from policy to implementation. And we want to really be engaged. We don't just want to be engaged at the tokenistic level. We actually want to change policies and change the world. We have ideas, we're well educated, and we understand our own generation more than anyone. So thank you for this great session. You've all been excellent, and I hope we'll see a great future ahead of us.